Are you ready for some insider secrets to not only transform your business, but also your mindset? Today, I'll be diving into day 3 and 4 of Funnel Hacking Live 2024. And let me tell you, it is game changing. I learned something critical while attending these sessions. And by the end of this episode, you're going to know exactly what that is, why it's so important. So stick with me because this is incredible. So, welcome back, by the way, to the IDKWTF I Was Doing podcast. I am your host, David B., your personal accountability buddy and action taker partner in crime. In each episode, we dive into the real, raw, and often chaotic journeys of different entrepreneurs, pulling case studies from publicly available sources so you can learn and grow from their experiences, which is both their successes and their struggles. But now, why should you listen through today? Because we're actually recapping Funnel Hacking Live 2024, and you're going to get actionable strategies to skyrocket your sales with humor, break down psychological barriers that might be holding you or your customers or clients back. Actually, we're going to go into redefining what it means to truly sell. You're going to discover how to tap into not only your audience's conscious mind, but into their subconscious, where the real decision making happens. And trust me, that is where the magic is. We're going to take some deep dive into these lessons. I'm going to give you an overview of all of the speakers, give you some of my thoughts and feelings about the entire event. And they actually announced a really, really big, crazy thing that they're doing, which I absolutely did not see coming. And it kind of motivated me into taking a big piece of action that I haven't taken before. So I'll tell you all about it in just a second. We're going to thank our sponsor and then we'll dive right in.
How can a single book be worth $1.5 million? In a hidden corner of the world, a collection of unparalleled wisdom has been discovered. This book, and the story behind it, has the power to revolutionize your approach to success. Written nearly a century ago and lost to time, this book contains the foundational principles that have shaped the lives of the most successful people in history. Only a select few have had the chance to see it, but now you can too. This isn't just a book, it's a priceless masterpiece that holds the key to unlocking your potential. Are you curious? Then go to idkwtfpodcast.com/book or click the link in the show notes below to see the full story and find out why this book is considered a priceless treasure as well as how it can influence your life forever. Again, check it out at idkwtfpodcast.com/book.
All right, guys, so welcome back. The first thing I want to tell you is their big surprise. So they announced that this next Funnel Hacking Live that's happening this coming February is actually going to be the last Funnel Hacking Live that they ever do. And I did not expect that. It's this big, crazy event. They've been doing it for 10 years. This is going to be the 10th one, and it is over. I decided that I am going to be up on stage getting an award. I'm going to be there. I want to get into the 2 Comma Club. And for those of you who know me, you know I'm advocate for not being a big business, right? I'm a small entrepreneur. I have low expenses. I don't need to spend a lot of money. I lead a very subtle life, if you will. You know, I'm single, no kids. I just travel a little bit. And I've never had to make a lot of money in my business to be comfortable. And I've never used ClickFunnels before. You know, I've known that it existed. I've known who Russell Brunson is. I've met him in person, actually. We all attended this large event together. And honestly, I've always played my business and my life pretty small. And I think what I'm going to do is strive for the next 6 months or so as hard as I can to become a 2 Comma Club winner so I can be on stage at the very last Funnel Hacking Live that will ever be. That to me is a really fun goal. I feel it's an obtainable goal with a lot of hard work. It's not going to be easy, but I feel like I have the skills to do it. I can use the program to do it once I learn how. I watched a lot of people who have done it, so I very well know it's doable. And I really feel I like the vibe and the energy and the enthusiasm that Russell Brunson gives off so much more than specifically Dean Graziosi has always kind of rubbed me the wrong way, even though I really love his teaching. His educational system is the best. His partnership with Tony Robbins. I don't think there is a better program to learn how to take your knowledge and turn it into something sellable that exists that is anything better what than Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins teaches. However, I think there is a really big benefit to having the platform you're selling on that is an all-in-one platform that is designed to be infinitely scalable without doing any extra work than what it takes when you first start out. That to me actually seems like a bigger benefit that I didn't realize was a benefit. And I'm a little frustrated I didn't realize that until I just went through this funnel hacking live. I will say they had some, he said it was going to be a $25,000 offer at the event. It ended up being about, I think, a $10,000 offer. I didn't look too closely at it. I'm not going to be doing that, but I am going to be doing the $97 a month to start my ClickFunnels membership. And actually, they have a one funnel away challenge, which I found it seems to be the best deal that I can find. The one thing I've noticed, I've never seen a discount for ClickFunnels. Even years ago, when he partnered with Tony Robbins to launch the movement that they did a while ago, he never discounted his program or his product. And I've never seen any coupons for it, and basically, I've never seen any ads for it other than the one funnel away challenge, which you used to have to pay for. And it actually seems to be, it's essentially free. You pay for 1 month, it's $100 total, but you get 3 free months of ClickFunnels, which is the only real deal I've ever seen them offer. And 3 months is a long time if you really dedicate into it to go through the one funnel away challenge where he teaches you everything in there to get your money back to be able to pay for the monthly membership charge for ClickFunnels or the software charge. So maybe the vibe of the event sold me into it and I got all emotional and wrapped up in it. And now I'm just logically justifying my choice to purchase this product. But I really don't think that's what's happened, because this is something I have been thinking about for quite some time, whether it's possible to run an entrepreneurial business without an all-in-one membership anymore, or all-in-one software program, which is like your landing page, your emails, your calendar links, your webinars, your appointment setting guides, basically with a place to host your course and your teaching classes. My business has separate companies for all of that, which all tend to be cheaper. And I'm pretty sure I pay quite a bit less than $100 a month when everything is said and done. But it looks a little messy and unprofessional when looked at it from the eyes of the consumer. And I've been toying with the idea of using an all-in-one platform. And because there are others like Kajabi, there's Teachable, there's Thrivecart, and a few others. And I know there's a lot of benefits for each one. But honestly, what it comes down to is ClickFunnels was the first. It's still the biggest, and it's run by the person who is the best at marketing, right? At digital marketing, anyway. There's nobody better than Russell Brunson. And so to use one of those other platforms, it just doesn't make sense. Just like, again, I really recommend if you're going to learn personal development or business, learn it from Tony Robbins. He is the first and the best. He has the best teams. He has the best resources, and he's seen more than anybody else ever has. The problem with Tony is I do feel like he's quite a bit out of touch now from the average common person, which is why it's so frustrating to listen to some of his stories. But Russell is still doing things. He's running funnels every day. He's creating new offers, and he's doing it without the brand name ClickFunnels behind him to launch these. And so he knows what's working right now, probably better than anybody else in the personal development world. And whenever you're looking at purchasing something, there's 3 things that you can do. One is you can look at the person who's doing it the best in the world, which is why I always say look at Tony Robbins, even Russell's marketing stuff is great. You can do it the cheapest, the least expensive, which is what I typically go for. I say, how can I do it the fastest, the easiest, and the cheapest? And that's what I kind of structure my framework around. And the other thing, you can find the person who has the closest experience to you. This is the one no one talks about. If you find someone who has the closest experience to you and is just a little bit ahead of you, they'll be able to teach you better than the person doing it the cheapest or the most expensive and the best. And I think what a lot of us newer entrepreneurs need to do is, number one, help the people who are just a few steps behind us. And we need to find people to partner with or learn from who are a few steps ahead of us, because no one knows your struggle better than the person who just did it like a few months ago, you know? So that's kind of, I think, the craziest thing. I would love if you joined the One Funnel Away challenge with me. We can do it together. You know, I am literally a few days ahead of you, if depending on when you're listening to this. And I am going to be going all in on it for the next 6 months. I am coming from zero understanding. I understand funnels. I understand a little bit of business, but I don't know anything about ClickFunnels. I logged in yesterday for the first time. I didn't even understand how the layout works yet, but I am very excited, optimistic, and motivated. And I have a really clear goal. I want to make $1 million in 5 months. And if you want to watch me do that, be on that journey with me, and do it alongside of me would be even better. I would love to invite you to do that. I found the link to the One Funnel Away challenge. It's going to be in the show notes. So you get ClickFunnels 3 months for free, the entire training course, which what I realized too, the other thing I really like about Russell Brunson, he doesn't really hide any information. He sells ebooks, and I think you can even get them for free. That's something I'm going to be looking for next, like which are his frameworks. He also teaches them in the One Funnel Away challenge, but the same frameworks that are in those books are the same frameworks that he teaches at Funnel Hacking Live, which are the same frameworks that he teaches at his $25,000 mastermind groups. Russell really doesn't hold anything back. He just gives you different ways to learn the same material. And the more intimate those ways are, the more expensive it is. So I'm pretty sold. I'm a big do-it-myselfer, so I'm going to be doing it myself in whatever resources I can find. And the thing is, it's been around for so long, there's a lot of free resources out there. So again, I invite you, come do it with me. And that's my ramble for a little bit. And so let's jump into the actual content from the Funnel Hacking Live, because there were also some really good parts of the day and then one terrible part of the day, a couple of bad parts, but one really bad part. And I'll dive into that and give my takeaways from my biggest takeaways from the few different speakers. So we started out with a delightful speaker. Kristen Morel. I actually saw some of her ads before the event, and it was very funny. She's very good at humorous and engaging ads, and that's what she did her presentation on, is how to make them more funny. So her number one thing was the key you always have to remember whenever you're selling something or selling anything: you want to take people away from pain and you want to take them towards pleasure. And if you want to do that in a funny way, you need to exaggerate the pain points and then exaggerate the pleasure points. And so do it as extreme as you want. The more extreme, the better. The biggest thing she always says, she said, is that, like, if you think your business is boring and you can't make funny videos out of your business, you have to realize that all businesses are boring. Doritos are boring. Technically, it's a chip, right? How do you make that fun? But the biggest businesses use humor in their ads all of the time, and especially the Super Bowl. All the Super Bowl ads are funny because they're the most memorable. So how can you do that for your own business? So number one, exaggerate the pain, exaggerate the pleasure. Number two, you can actually use an exaggerated pain point using someone else's video. And she showed an example of stitching someone else's video. We're basically duetting it, which is what it was called in TikTok, and then adding your own funny take on top of it. You can tell a funny story. This is number three, that segues into talking about your business. So a funny story about, she told a story about she thought Mariah Carey was going to ask her a question, and she went into deep of like all the questions Mariah Carey could be asking her. And then she just asked her to be quiet, basically. So those are three easy ways to make it funny. And oh, there's more. So there's also, you can exaggerate it so much it doesn't make sense. So just take it as extreme as possible. And you can also flip things around, which is what she did for the ClickFunnels commercial that I actually saw independently on Facebook. It just got targeted towards me, where you complain about everything your ideal client wants. So her thing was like, I'm so tired of making so much money. I'm so tired of getting notifications on sales that I can't sleep at night. I'm so sick of my kid having such a lavish life. He doesn't understand what hard work is, and that kind of a thing. And I honestly believe that this is the one of the best things that can be done for your business, but making really good ads is difficult, and making social media clips in general is difficult. It's a whole art form on its own. I do think, like I talked about in yesterday's video, it is the probably single most important skill to be learning in 2024. But unfortunately, you also have to learn how to run a business. So you have to know how to do the business first before you can focus on the ads. So it's a really difficult thing that's not for everybody, but it is critical. Russell did his best content by a lot. And this is probably his signature talk. Remember, I haven't seen one of these, but he just killed it with this one. I guess that's why they saved it for this day. But it was basically talking about one-to-many selling. Yesterday, we talked about one-to-one selling, which I think is the secret weapon for most people like us. And then once you get good at that one-to-one selling, then you scale up to one-to-many, which is exactly what he went over completely. Again, the only thing keeping you from what you want is a paradigm, because success is only 10% tactics and it's 90% psychology. Tony Robbins teaches us, everyone teaches us, we know this. The other big thing he says is that you can use funnels to sell anything. You can use it to sell anything. It's an idea, which I didn't know you could use it to sell physical products. You can use it to create communities, courses. There's literally anything that you have in your heart or your mind or an idea, you can turn it into a funnel. You can turn it into a business, and you can find people who will invest in that business with you. But the thing is, you have to be able to convey it in a way where they can buy it. And the biggest thing is you have to understand that psychology of your customer and the psychology of yourself, really, in order to be able to, number one, finish making the product that you're trying to make, and then convey that somebody else needs it as well. So he goes on to really dive into the psychology of all of us. He really broke into the psychology of kind of humans, how we are. So we have our conscious mind, right, which we know, which is full of two things. One is emotion, the other one is logic. For most people, typically one of these things is louder than the other, but these two are kind of constantly fighting with each other. And the conscious mind, both the logical and the emotional side, only gets emotion from five sources, which is our taste, our touch, our smell, our sight, or our hearing. And it also gives us the ability to choose the things that we actually want. What do we want to do? The conscious mind thinks in questions, right? Now, the other big thing that all of us who have been in the personal development world for any amount of time, we all logically understand this, but we never really actually act on this or intuitively understand it, because our conscious mind is there, but it's actually our subconscious mind that is in charge. And he calls the conscious mind your monkeys, which are kind of monkeying around, playing around, arguing with each other, your emotional monkey, and your logical monkey that kind of bicker with each other. And he used some stuffed animals, which I thought was delightfully funny. And I just think depicted his talk so well. So you've got your logical, emotional monkeys, which are your conscious mind. And then you have an elephant, which is actually the subconscious mind who is in charge. The conscious mind thinks in questions. What do I want? Why do I want it? What should I do? The subconscious mind thinks in stories. Hey, remember that one time you tried this and failed? You definitely shouldn't try it again. Hey, this sounds like a similar situation to when you were 5 and you touched a stove, and we probably shouldn't do that anymore, right? So, for an example, what's really interesting is your subconscious mind actually responds about 7 seconds faster than your logical mind can respond. So you already have a feeling of what you want or what you don't want before your logical mind can interpret it and either say, yes, I do want that, or yes, I can do that. Your subconscious mind has already made a decision. For example, you might spend the money on a course. You might really want to get that end result that the course will bring, and the monkeys are going crazy with excitement. The emotional monkey is like, oh my God, the future is going to be so cool. The logical one is like, man, we're going to make so much money. We're going to buy all this stuff. But if your subconscious mind tells you that you're not worthy of doing this or becoming the person that's will end up needing to be taught in the course, you're never going to achieve it. Because if the subconscious mind isn't on board, these two actually have no power. So, a big thing that we all need to do is stop feeding that negative subconscious with thoughts or behaviors or input or media, and we need to really reprogram it. And I think this is the number one takeaway from this talk is that logically, again, I do know this, but it's difficult to do. And so there are a lot of times where I'm just tired of motivational content, or I'm tired of affirmations, or I think that gratitude journals are time consuming and don't really do that much. But the amount of work that it takes to program your subconscious is a lot. And the things that happen aren't consciously happening. So I'm really resistant to a lot of those things sometimes because I'm like, logically, I already know this. I've heard this talk 100 times. I don't need to listen to it again. But it's not about what my logical mind wants. It's about reprogramming my subconscious mind at a subconscious level, right? So that's something I'm going to add more into my schedule is conscious, like intentional subconscious programming that I'm not going to enjoy doing as much because I'm logically over it, but I think it needs to get into that subconscious. The other big thing, right? So we have the monkeys are logical and emotional. We have our subconscious elephant that does just about everything. We also have the fear mind, which is that lizard, and he uses a little lizard stuffed animal because we do have still our reptilian brain that's trying to keep us safe from everything. It's always trying to identify a threat. And what Russell said is that there's only two fears we're actually born with, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. Every single other thing is learned. And the subconscious mind really feeds that lizard mind to keep us on alert. And then the lizard is like, hey, this thing, it's going to make you hurt. It's going to make you feel bad. It's going to make you not worthy. And the biggest one is it's going to make you not be loved, right? If you fail, you won't be loved. So the fear mind is the one that deals in absolutes. There's no negotiating with it, really. It's either all in or all out. And that's a loud voice against that subconscious mind that we also have to really train or calm down. And the only way to really sell something or be completely bought into something ourselves is if our lizard is calm, if our elephant is guided, and if you can get the monkeys to agree on the direction that they want to go. The biggest way he says you can do this is build out an inventory of stories, right? So you have to figure out what any objections possibly could be. Typically, there's three real objections. It's time, money, spouse, or worthiness, like which I think actually Barry Baumgartner talks about this much more tomorrow. But if you can find a bunch of stories that communicate to the subconscious and calm that lizard mind, it'll be much more likely that people invest or buy your product, right? And here's a list of kind of objections that and so basically people will say, I can't afford that. So you need a story for I can't afford that. How can I afford that? I just can't do it. Is there any way that I can afford it? So he talks about his Visa MasterCard story and that they finance things. And if you can make the minimum monthly payment, you can make your money back. I generally think it's really, really bad advice to recommend someone put your course or your thing on a credit card. I think that is highly toxic, but it is a good story nonetheless. If you really think this will get me X result, then why don't you give it to me for free until I get that result and then I'll pay you? And the biggest thing is, those who pay attention, those who don't. Resistance. People are going to have resistance come up because of fear. Could you have a story that can overcome that resistance? A paradigm story where like most of us had to realize like this dude made $1 million in a single day. If he can do that, maybe I can do that too. What paradigm do your clients need to shift and how can you turn that into a story? That investing in your future is a good investment. How can you tell a story where investment turns into a good result? And the one big key, he said, if you ever run an event, you need to bring in other speakers that are specifically designed to rewrite one of those false beliefs of your customers. So that was powerful, really good stuff. I think it's also in some of his books, and this is just another thing from his book that he teaches again. So this is something I'm going to be learning more here in the future. I'm going to kind of breeze through a lot of these other guys. So Bill Von Fumetti, him I actually really liked because he teaches the same way I teach, right? He talked about how to basically do a one funnel. He spends $150,000 every single day to get people to buy his products in ads. He spends that much in ads daily, which means he's getting more than that back every single day. So I think he's one of the best spenders. And what he does is he teaches a one funnel. You have one path that leads to, or essentially you have traffic that you're buying the ads that leads to a single challenge or a webinar that leads to a single offer. I think this is where everyone needs to start. The biggest thing, and probably one of the things in my business that it took me a while to learn, is that the more offers you have, the more products you have. If you have, like I used to do challenges, I used to help people with setting up product launches, building their website, escaping retail, learning how to use Zoom. These were all different things I was helping people do. And then it kind of makes it really hard to get people into one spot. So what I've really done is consolidated all of my stuff into my unlimited coaching program, which is basically I help you with your end result as a partner, as an accountability buddy, as friendship. Because the number one thing that I notice people don't have when we're doing this is we're always all alone. We don't have someone we can rely on. So that's kind of the one thing that I fix. And then when we do that, I can help people with all the other stuff, but it's the loneliness and the lack of accountability that I think is the biggest key to most entrepreneurs. And that's specifically what I help with now. And then the other stuff is just kind of peppered in. So he says, how do you have one offer that you can teach from one challenge or a webinar that you direct all of your traffic to? And then once you do that, you automate it so you don't always have to be there doing it. And then once you do that, you pay as much as you possibly can to get more people into that automation, which will ultimately make you more money. With my business, I can't automate it because I'm right here with you every single day, nonstop. But the webinar to get potential sales call, that is something that I can automate, and that's something I'll be doing here soon. David J.P. Phillips, beautiful presentation. He talked about, the number one thing that you have to do. The whole point of a funnel is to get people in front of you so you can sell them something. And he taught us how to be a better presenter and a better speaker. There are 8 things that if you just tweak slightly will make you better presenters than like most people in the world. I think he has 110 core skills total that he teaches, but he says if you focus on these 8, you'll be dramatically better than you've ever been, which is your pacing. Sometimes you got to talk really fast because you got to be really excited. Sometimes you have to be slow because it needs to be really intentional. And then sometimes you really need to pause. He says also get rid of filler sounds, which is like and which is something I need to actually work on. Thankfully, my editing software takes out a lot of them, but live I've gotten a lot better, but I'm not great. The reason filler sounds are bad is because they convey that you're either nervous, you're lying, or you're thinking. And when you're conveying the sound, it unfortunately leaves it up to the listener to subconsciously decide which one it's going to be. and it's probably not the one you want it to be. They're probably going to think you're lying when you're just nervous. Functional gestures. He calls this the mother skill because the more you gesture, it actually, or the better you get at gesturing, it affects 20 other skills. And he says if you're not planning out your gestures, it's likely you're sending mixed signals or using irritating, repetitive gestures, which now I'm going to be hyper fixated on for the rest of this talk to see if I'm like just doing the same thing over and over again, which was the example he used. The dude was just going like this, and that seemed horrible. So I'm going to try and mix it up a little bit so that it's not repetitive. He also says you need to have neutral body language, which I forget what that means because I didn't take any extra notes on there. Move forward when you want to emphasize something. And then one funny one, like some extra one, is if you laugh to yourself before you say something, it enhances the point, or looking up to fetch memory enhances the point. And then the other big thing is you want to make sure you're looking at the camera. This is a really, really important one that's hard to do when I'm also reading my notes. But whenever you're speaking on a Zoom or to a presentation, you want to look at the camera and not at yourself on the screen. Garrett J. White was up next, and he made me so angry I actually had to leave the room, and they gave him a whole hour and a half. I went to the store. I was so upset with him. Again, I recognize that different people resonate with different people, and there are a lot of people that seem to really resonate with Garrett. I don't mind people who are direct. I don't mind people who are aggressive. I don't mind people who are vulgar as speakers whatsoever. That's all fine for me. But in the one speech that Garrett did, he managed to he did a speech about being honest with your clients and with your customers. And he said, I made a goal in my life, and he ended up doing steroids and growth hormone to reach his goal to get this fit body, which is to me just inherently dishonest. He didn't mention that, but you can tell when someone has used steroids to gain X amount of muscle in a short amount of time when you're age 50. His wife also just full of plastic surgery, and she sells hair extensions. But again, she says you need to be your authentic self, which is just not the same thing. Like, I'm not against plastic surgery. I'm not against using steroids. I'm not against better living through chemistry whatsoever. Do whatever you want to do, but don't give an hour and a half long presentation about honesty when you're clearly not being honest. The other thing that really bugged me was he overtly used religion, even though he specifically said he didn't follow any religion until about a year ago. He quoted the Bible over and over and over, which I'm not against, but he was doing it manipulatively in order to connect with people. And that to me is the dirtiest, most inauthentic, most manipulative and controlling behavior that someone can do. I was aghast that Russell Brunson, who is actually very religious, allowed him on stage for so long to be so disrespectful to people who are religious and to really people in the fitness and nutrition industry and people who really do promote and respect authenticity and honesty. And a lot of people are going to say, well, you just didn't like the way he delivered his message. It had nothing to do with that whatsoever. But that's all I'm going to say about him. Actually, again, I will say that a lot of times there are going to be other speakers that you don't resonate with, and it is still important to get messages from them, even though you might not like the way they deliver the message. This is something I say to my clients a lot, and it's something I do truly believe. So actually, some of the biggest takeaways that I did get from him, like some of his message was actually good. You do need to be sometimes brutally honest. Like if you're not doing well, you need to honestly say, yeah, I suck at this. I'm not good at this. And you can't sugarcoat that, right? The more honest you can be, the more you can fix something. The other thing he did say is that, one of the benefits of AI that's kind of taking over everything is that everyone's going to have beautiful, perfect sales copy. They're going to have perfect funnels. They're going to have the best ads with the perfect graphics. And that's actually a really good thing because we're coming back to a place where authenticity is going to be more important than it's ever been. which is weird coming from the least authentic person I've ever seen, at least one of the least authentic people. But it is absolutely true because people really want to care about you. And AI is going to level that playing field and make humanity more human. And the other big takeaway I got is once again, people don't want improvement, they want transformation. So, how can you transform people's life in a way that nobody ever has before? Russell then came out, talked about his prime mover movement, and gave his perfect webinar formula, which is in one of his books. I don't know which one offhand, but basically it's taking people through the hero's journey in a webinar, which is really cool because that's what I do on these podcast episodes is I actually go through different entrepreneurs' hero's journey because it's the best way to tell a story and it's the best way to really see because we all go through it, right? We all have a calling. We all hear it, we go for it. Then we have a refusal of the call. We think we're like, oh, maybe it's not for me. I could never do that. I think I should probably just stay where I'm at. We find a guide who takes us to where we want to go. And he says, actually, I kind of think you could do that. I think that sounds like a great idea. So then they accept it and they go through trials and tribulations. Just when you think you're going to get there, there's always another big trial. But eventually, when you get through it, you return with an elixir, with a reward, and you get to bring that back to the people. And that is what we all really want as entrepreneurs. And that is his perfect webinar formula, which is really cool. You start with that origin story. You map the secrets like a guide. You have to overcome the internal false beliefs, which are some of the trials and tribulations. You have to overcome external false beliefs, which are more trials and tribulations. Then you have to ask and for the sale and close the presentation, which gets you the reward. I'm sure he breaks it down much better, and you can probably even find that for free, the perfect webinar formula. But I did very much enjoy this. But the other big thing that he said is every presentation you do, every webinar needs to have the goal of getting people to believe one single thing. Anything more than one single thing is confusing and it will lower your conversion. And then the timeline of a perfect webinar is you want it to be about 90 minutes long. The first 15 minutes is your story. The next hour is crushing false beliefs with story after story after story. And then the last 15 minutes is your sales presentation, offering them the best possible option. How do you create a best possible offer? Number one, you need to create a level 10 offer. It's got to be amazing. Then you have to iterate it until it's perfect. Maybe giving one-to-one presentations to see how you can get the best thing that people actually want. And at that point, you're going to have a starving crowd mentality. You're going to have people who absolutely and irresistibly want the product that you're offering. The other big thing he says is you always want to ask permission before presenting your offer. And this is one tweak that I actually learned from Dean Graziosi is you need a bridge from your educational content into the offer. So all you have to do is say, hey guys, I gave you all this information. I know that we only have a limited time together. Do you mind if I share a way you can work with me further? Doing this just makes it so much easier on the audience so that they don't get resistant. I think this is one of those small tweaks that are just really, really, really important. And then Annie Grace came up and she shared she did a really good job. I feel like she was also a little bit nervous and she might have had to kind of rush through some of her speech because I feel like her story is incredibly powerful, but I didn't feel the impact. This day 3 was also really, really long. So maybe I was just tired at this point, or maybe she was tired at this point too. But she was talking about how she built kind of a really powerful way for people to quit alcohol. And she told her alcoholic story where the biggest takeaway from that was, she didn't drink much for a long time. She started to drink more and more. And she was out on a business trip. She had been out all night drinking and she went to the bar. One of the strong rules that she had for herself, she says, I'm not an alcoholic because I never drink hard liquor in the morning. And she was at an airport waiting for a flight and she was like, hey, can I have a mimosa? And they were like, no, we can't do a mimosa because the bottle of champagne will be wasted. So, and then the bartender was like, but hey, I can give you a screwdriver. And it was just the one step where she had 5, and then she was drunk on her flight on this business trip. And I think that was the point where she realized she really, really had a problem. Once you start breaking your own rules for things, it's a slippery slope and it gets worse and worse. But the biggest thing is she's built a multi 6-figure income, if not more, sharing this story and helping other people's recover from alcoholism. And one of the biggest things is, she said was no matter how dark the pit is that you've been in, if you're still here, there's always another chapter. If you're still here, the world needs your medicine. And there is quite literally no one other than you who can share that message. And that's really why these funnels are so important, because really, if you're here, if you're listening to this, if you're still listening to this after so many minutes, you clearly have a mission you want to share with the world, and it just might be your destiny and your calling to do so. So we then had 6 inner circle members share their best info. Christina Rowe talked about Facebook groups, why that is the absolute best thing to do to get new clients, which is my favorite method to get clients also. Jump into groups, share value, be in a lot of groups that have people that you care about. Always lurk. Don't sell anything. You answer stuff as an expert. You invite them to talk to you one-on-one in a DM, and then you have something free that you can give away, right? You never want to be salesy. You never want to be spammy. You don't want to commandeer other people's Facebook groups, but they are the absolute best places to find your best possible people. But engagement is really the secret. Vishal talked about how to go from a cold audience to a high ticket offer. And basically the core of what he says is people need to see your highest offer as early as possible because they might really want it right away. He had a whole bunch of other stuff, but it was late and I wasn't taking great notes, it turns out. And the key is, though, you always want to focus on the process, not the profit. You're never selling a product. You're selling your enthusiasm, your energy, and your personality. And then if you start high, the worst case is then you enroll them into a lower ticket offer. Mr. Edward came in. He shared what he called a know, like, and trust you funnel, which I didn't totally understand, but basically was know, like, and trust you formula. Funnel is basically starting with short form content, which we all know that we need, but it's hard. We need long form content, which is like YouTube or a podcast. And you need a community like our Action Taker Facebook group, which is totally free to join. And that's how people will they know you, like you, and trust you more and more. And then you can enroll them into another product. I think that's a pretty straightforward way to do it. And so that was kind of the core of day 3.
Are you drowning in tasks, feeling stuck and overwhelmed, or just plain frustrated with your business? Have you been spending hours each day with no real results and confused about exactly what to do next? Are you feeling a bit lonely because you don't quite know how to find the support you're looking for? Well, I understand how you're feeling because I went through this for years. I'm David B., and I'm here to help with the best solution to get you out of this funk. Now, Tony Robbins says to create the product you always wish you had. And really, I always yearned for a knowledgeable friend who I could message for answers, hacks, or ideas. But all I found were $1,000 video courses or gurus charging hundreds for an hour of coaching, where they ended up just trying to sell me something else anyway. That's why I created my monthly unlimited teamwork sessions, to give you the support I wished I had at a fraction of the cost and exponentially more value than anything out there that's similar. Get started with me today and enjoy virtually unlimited access to my personal cell phone number every day with no contracts, no commitments, and you'll have hands-on support whenever you need it. You can work with me as your personal mentor, your assistant, or your accountability buddy, always just a message or a phone call away. Imagine not having to purchase another book, another online workshop, or some masterclass because you can just text me, David B., your buddy, who has been at the forefront of this industry for a decade. And because this is so personalized and it's dramatically less expensive than you'd ever expect, spots are very limited. So don't wait. Go to IDKWTFpodcast.com/David B. and say yes to your success to day?
Day 4 was probably the top day by a significant amount. And he led with the fact that these events are great. They get you jazzed up. They get you motivated. They get you excited. But what happens on Monday? What happens when real life hits? What happens when you're away from the group and the community and the crowd? And the memory of the event starts to fade even more and more. So this is only a successful event. The things that you do are only successful if the people can learn and implement the things that you teach them, or if you learn and implement what you've just been taught. Hilarious thing, because again, he sold this $10,000 product. He said there were a lot of you who purchased, and I know that you went home and you went to bed and you were so comfy because you knew that you were doing the right thing and you know that your future is set. But I know there's others of you who didn't invest and you're kind of still stressed about it because you want to do it, but it's way outside your comfort zone and you're really thinking about it. So now I want to answer some questions that you probably have spinning around in your head, which I think is just a great thing to do. Because again, after you do a pitch, there are people who are going to want it. But again, there are those logical buyers that they need to think about it. And what you really need to do is give them those answers. And of course, then what he had was Barry Baumgartner, who is probably my favorite presenter of the entire thing. I've seen her talk before, but this one, she knocked it out of the park. And there is a difference between when someone's at a high level and you can tell they're unprepared, like some of the other people that I mentioned, and when they're at a high level and they just go 100% into it. And Barry, she talked about overcoming objections in one of my favorite presentations that I've ever seen. Because again, you have to realize he's trying to sell us something at the same time, right? So he's giving us stuff that is doing the same thing to us, right? He sold a thing. Now he's got to overcome our objections. And now she's giving a presentation on how to overcome objections for your client while at the same time trying to overcome our objections. And I think it's, number one, hilarious, but she did it in a beautiful way. Barry, if you don't know, she's the one who actually runs these big events. She's the event coordinator, and she's got like a multi-7-figure business because she runs the events for the wealthiest people and the best presenters in the world. And the one thing that got her there is she was able to overcome objections better than probably anybody else out there. And the way to do it, the biggest way to do it is, number one, you have to enroll yourself first before you can enroll anyone else. You can no longer afford to sit on the sidelines, and you have to know that what you're doing is for you. So she told her story. She almost quit Girl Scouts, but decided not to. And her framework is, how do you create a natural conversation, allowing you to sell from one person to many that doesn't feel sleazy, scammy, or unnatural? And she says there are 3 things. Again, you have to know the types of buyers, and there are 2 types. There's emotional buyers and there's logical buyers. Emotional buyers are only about 30% of the people, so you have to appeal to logical buyers, which are those of us like me who ask a lot of questions, who do a lot of research. They're not objecting or ejecting. You have to understand that when they are asking those questions, it's their way of processing and deciding. And so the biggest thing is you always have to ask, tell me more. When anyone asks a question, you feel like they're objecting, ask them to tell you more so you can understand what actually is happening. Because a lot of the times, and I especially notice in my mastermind, when someone has a problem and they initially tell you the problem, it's never that. It's always, you need to go deeper to figure out what's actually the issue. And you, as the salesperson, as the person destined to help them in their issue, it's your responsibility to diagnose what that actual problem is so that you can get them the solution that you know that they need. So she says there's 5 main objections. There's time. Again, how you overcome that, you have a real talk. You know that you can find time for the things that you want to do. How much screen time do you have on your phone? Let me look at that right now. I bet I can help you find the time. Let's delete the Facebook app. And by the way, you don't have to give these things up forever, just for a little bit. Number 2 is money. You are more resourceful than your resources. No one is sitting around with a bucket of extra money, or time for that matter. The average person doesn't have money. That's the thing. What we all So what are all the ways you could find and make some money for this? Let's brainstorm 50 ways to get it done. You could, if you need more money, you can Uber, you can pet sit, you can sell some stuff. There's something you can do. And the thing you really have to understand, if you're creating a product and you're not willing to do the things to make more money, to get the better education, to get the thing that you want, how can you expect anyone else to, anyone that you're selling something to? A big thing I always say is if you get offended when the sales presentation comes on at any event, you're never going to sell anything because you have some internal resistance somewhere to people selling stuff, which means you're going to have resistance when it comes to you offering your services to other people. You have to start loving people's sales pitches all of the time. So the big two is time and money. The other one is a business partner or my spouse or someone else. I have to check with them. Again, the thing you realize, we're always asking for permission, not support. And if someone says, hey, I've got to check with my partner, something you have to do is say, hey, can I have a real conversation with you? Can we have a level 5 conversation? This is an honest conversation. Because what you need to come to your spouse, there's a difference between saying, hey, I'm debating doing this thing. I think it's going to really help. And, I know in the past I've tried a few things. I've spent a lot of money and I didn't quite do the thing. And I know I failed before. And she says, yeah, you're right. I should probably just get another job. That's your partner's not going to support you. But what if you tried it a different way? What if you sat down and said to your partner or your business partner, you said, hey, I want to talk to you about something incredibly amazing. I had a complete transformation this weekend. I've been trying to do this thing all wrong and all by myself and just beating myself up this whole time about it. But hey, when we needed a lawyer, we didn't just hope one had the skills to go to court and just maybe get it right. We needed a lawyer with some experience who has been to court, who knew what they were doing. Whenever we go to the doctors, we don't just hope the doctor watch some YouTube videos and can fix us. We want a real doctor that has gone through the school and gotten the skills to do the operation that we need. And what I realized is that starting this business, I've been trying to piddle paddle away at it on my own, but I'm not an expert at this. But I just went to this seminar where the best experts in the world have a whole framework in school that teach all of the skills I would possibly need. So I don't have to try and fail by myself. I can actually go get the education so that we can go build this business and actually live the life that we want to dream. I really hope you're going to support me in this investment that I really want to make. And you know what? I know it's expensive, but want to trade you, X, Y, and Z. I'm going to take on more chores around the house. I'm going to do all of these extra. I know I have to work at these certain times because I'm building this business, but you know what? I'll take the kids on Sunday completely, and then you can have a day off. And that's such a different way to look at it. And she says the person, which is just true, the person with the most certainty will win any conversation. And so if you're relying on a spouse or a partner to give you the permission, you're giving away your power. And when you do that, you're going to start to resent them. They're going to start to resent you. It's not fair to them. And so it comes back to you need to enroll yourself in the vision of whatever it is you're going to do before any partner is going to support you. And it would be foolish of them to support you and advocate for you to do something if you are not 1,000,000% committed yourself. So that's an internal thing you have to do for yourself and a way to present it to your potential clients. So we have time objection, money objection, spouse objection, and then fear, shame, and self-doubt are kind of the next two. And the thing that she says, the harder we go down this list, or the further we go down this list, the more difficult these things are to talk about. It's really easy. It's almost common nowadays to talk about how little money we have and how broke we are, right? Or how little time we have and how busy we are. But talking about my fear and my shame and my self-doubt, am I going to be able to actually do it this time, is a really difficult conversation to have, not only with another person, but even within ourselves. So one thing that I've actually had to say to a client is, how much worse is this going to get for you before you decide to make a change? At some point, you need to get to a level of feeling just so disgusted with yourself and what you're doing that you have no choice but to make some big dramatic change. And It's true for everyone. If we don't do something big, things are going to progressively get worse. They're not going to stay the same. And so often, opportunities vanish, right? And there might be a point where you will never come back and never be able to get the thing that you want that's being presented to you right now. And this is true for anything in any situation for any of us. And it's true for the clients that you want to help also. And if you know that things are going to get worse for them, you have to be all in on helping them find the solution. And remember, again, she's trying to sell us something. So she asked us, she said, which one of these 5 things would prevent you from buying something, this thing, today? And this is really true, right? You have to make your reason not to do it. You have to flip that into the reason to do it, especially when it comes to something that's going to make you money. If you give me any one of those 5 objections, this has to be the reason that you actually do it today. Because if you don't have the time, no one has time. You're never going to get more time. The only way you can get more time is if you have more disposable income to free up other things in your life. You have to do that. If your spouse doesn't support you, then you have to enroll yourself completely, accomplish your goals so that they can see you be successful, so that they will support you when you are successful. Otherwise, it's just going to reinforce it in their mind that you are going to fail at the things that you try. If you're full of fear, you need to do this to conquer your fear. You cannot let another day turn into another decade. If you're full of shame and self-doubt because you've failed before, then you need to commit to this so that you can prove it to yourself that you're capable. The more you let shame control your life, the more you're going to be miserable forever. And these are really powerful ways to overcome the objections even within yourself. Even if it's not necessarily within other people, you have to do this with yourself first. Another big thing that those of us in the personal development industry really know is that often when you start doing something, the people who care about you the most are going to try and keep you safe. They don't want to see you hurt. They don't want to see you fail. And so they will often, trying to be supportive, tell you not to try. Barry told a story about when she got divorced and she kind of felt like she needed to go do something and she wanted to go move to New York. And her mom was like, hey, you just got divorced. You don't need to go be in some big dangerous city as a single woman. Why don't you come home? We're going to turn the basement into a little place you can live. You've got your own entrance. It'll be like your own studio apartment. Just come home. Come stay with us. And what she said is if she had said yes, she would have literally or figuratively died in that basement. And because she took the jump and moved to New York into some crummy little basement place where she had an air mattress that barely stayed inflated, she is a multi-millionaire multi times over. She found the spouse that she loves and who she says is amazing. And she said, my husband never would have fallen in love with me if I lived in my mom's basement. And then she says, eventually, you're going to have to learn that the riskiest choice is actually the safest choice. Is it more risky to live in your mom's basement, or is it more risky to live on your own terms in a small shack in New York? She says the pain of regret is the greatest danger in our life because a day becomes a week becomes a year, and a year becomes a decade. The most powerful statement she said was indecision is one of the worst forms of self-abuse. She had so many more amazing knowledge bombs in there. It was incredible. I'm probably the most happy that I got to see her speak and give that presentation. Those were my biggest takeaways. There were a few other speakers as well. Pace Morby talked about how to build communities, which he was also a phenomenal speaker, and talked about how to really turn your community into something so much deeper. Don't just collect people into a Facebook group. He's essentially turning his community into an educational college for real estate. So the better people do in there, they make more money. They start teaching others. They're all doing deals with each other. They even started their own insurance company. It's a really cool thing that he did. Trent Shelton's probably one of my favorite motivational speakers, and he came out and just killed it. I can't even pretend to cover some of the things that he said because he just did amazing. And so, again, my biggest takeaways from this entire event is that the landscape of entrepreneurship has shifted again. It shifted in 2019 or 2018 when Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi came out and taught people everything that they'd learned for the last 40 years and then turned it into a $2,000 course. And then more people than ever bought it and more people used it. More people were putting that knowledge online and then flooding the market. We are now at a point where AI is leveling the field so that everything is obtainable by everyone and things look really good, they sound really good, and it's more important now than ever for one-on-one personal contact to be the thing that we're offering to each other, to have support, to have education to help people getting through the problems that are vexing their lives. And I don't think that there's a better program than, or at least a better software company than ClickFunnels to provide that in a pretty way. I don't think there's a better teacher who can teach it in a more streamlined and effective way than Russell Brunson. And I don't think that there is a better time than now to get started with turning your knowledge into a product if you haven't already, or scaling your business in a new way if you're comfortable with entrepreneurship already. So I'm personally 1,000,000% jumping into ClickFunnels. The One Funnel Away challenge is what I'm literally going to do as soon as I hit stop. And I truly believe that it's now easier than it's ever been to earn income doing the things that you want to do. So again, please come do it with me. Like, I would love for someone, I know not a ton of people are watching this. I didn't drop it as soon as I should have, but I'm going to be asking on some other social media as well. Like, come join the One Funnel Away challenge with me. Let's do this. I'm strongly going to reach 6 figures in my business before February of 2025. I want to be on that stage, getting my award. And again, I'm probably going to do it once. I don't need to make that much money. I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it for the award. But I would love as many people to join me as possibly can. And I would love to have like a little team of, maybe 5 people who get together and we start meeting every day, every week, and go over what we're doing, what's working, what's not working, supporting each other on this new thing that maybe none of us have ever done before. And if you've used ClickFunnels, then reach out to me. Tell me how to do it. That would dramatically help me, right? So again, I want to thank you for listening. We'll be back to our case studies starting next week. And remember that it's completely okay if you don't know what the F you're doing, as long as you're doing something. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.